And we are recording.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll just see who shows up. And I assume that they're going to be able to edit our recording and knock out all the chitter chatter at the beginning. And if they can't, then okay, that's the way it goes.
We'll have to see.
I'm also waiting for Chris because he wanted to do something about, there we go.
We're
There's
all
one
Barbara. Hey,
Yes,
Jay.
hello, Barbara Perez.
I think he's connecting, but hey, Jay. Can you hear us?
Not yet. There's Chad.
Hey, Chad.
Hi, can you
Hi.
hear and see me?
We can hear and see you.
Oh, wonderful.
Hear and see.
And I think Jay is figuring out his audio.
Mm.
I haven't yet figured out a way to be able to get Anne-Marie and myself off of the screen, completely off of the screen and gone. So we may be
You can
hovering in the
make one of them,
background.
spotlighted, and they'll be like the main screen that people will see.
Yeah.
Well, I would do that, except they're going to screen share stuff. So I think it might,
Oh.
I mean,
I can just stop
I'm
my
willing
video.
to spotlight anyone, but if we spotlight them,
We can play with it.
yeah. Hey, Steve. Okay, Jay's got his name changed. I don't know if he can hear us yet.
I think he's figuring out. It's always tricky to figure out the audio the first time with these Zooms because the
It
computers
is.
don't know what to read.
Yeah. Chris, do you know of a way that we can make ourselves disappear and, just so that there aren't quite as many people on the screen? They're going to screen share anyway. So Barbara, does anyone else need screen share?
It's just me and Chad. So I'm going to
just
screen
Chad.
share first. I've got like 10 slides and then it'll just be us talking and then we're going to pass it on to Chad.
All right. I'm going to make Chad a co-host as well.
Perfect.
So he should also have screen share options that way.
At the
Steve,
very
can
least,
you
you can stop
remember
sharing
what
your
the
video.
Atlas, or I'll just hand it off to you. You can tell them about the Atlas coupon. I can't remember how much it is.
Yeah, however you want it.
No, you can't tell them. Never mind, you're breaking up. I don't want you telling them. I'll tell
Yeah,
them.
my hotspot's been.
Yeah, your hotspot is not working well. It wasn't working well the other day either. Is it 10% off? Just nod your head.
It's-
It's on the Comic Fest page on our website.
I know, but what does it say? Because I'm not on the Comic Fest page.
10%
Can
off
you hear
of free comic book day books.
No, you're breaking up really badly.
Yeah, this is one of those new hotspots Molly gave me. The other one I had was much better.
Now you're great.
Oh, now you can hear me. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm on the site.
It-
It says visit Atlas Comics between September 5th and 13th and mention Comic Fest to receive a 10% discount on your purchase and get 2 free books from this year's free comic book day.
Ooh.
5 through
That's beautiful.
13, 10%, and 2 free comic book day books.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Penny?
Yeah.
We don't need to mention this one, but so you know, last night I heard from Crystal Wilson, and she's running a sale on her webpage today too.
I was gonna try to mention Artist Alley and check the
Yeah,
sales and stuff
that's
on.
kind of what I told her we would do, that we would try to encourage people to check out in people's sites. Because she asked me if it was okay for her to post about it on Facebook, and absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So Chris, thank you for getting that extra picture up in the cosplay.
Jay, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hello. Oh, we
We're
can
coming in
hear
loud?
you. Yeah, no, that's great.
Now we can. Now we can.
Okay, great.
Good.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning.
Barbara, have you tested screen sharing and stuff yet?
Not yet, but we can do that right now.
Okay.
Share screen. Oh, look at this thing. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna put this on screen 2. I want to share screen 1. Let's see what this looks like. I'm gonna
I can
present
see it.
this bad boy. How's that?
I can see your wallpaper.
Mhm.
Oh.
Is that the right screen?
Oh, it should be the PowerPoint. So let's see. How's this one?
Yes,
Yep,
there you
yep.
go.
There you go.
Perfect. So it's staying on this screen. So.
So Barbara, were you gonna take the lead in terms of presenting? Or what-
I was planning to if everybody's okay with that, and I could just present away, and everybody's welcome to like chip in. But it's literally, as you can see, it's like just us, how many of us there are, and our links. And then I'm gonna stop right here. I just didn't delete all the reading slides. I'll stop right here, and then we'll switch over to us essentially.
Cool.
So that's the plan. All right, so I guess I can stop share for now. Great.
Okay, I'll just quickly make sure I can share.
Yep.
Ba-ba-bum.
Make sure you know which screen it is.
Yep. Can you see?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay. It's annoying that Zoom hides its interface when I'm sharing,
Yeah,
and it's hard to stop. Okay, there it is. Okay.
great.
Let's see. Okay. Will folks be able to send in questions and if so,
Yeah.
will it be through the chat or through Q&A?
I think we'll have them do it through Q&A. I think that might be better. It might be a little, because if they're chatting to each other, I'm afraid we might lose questions in the chat.
Great.
Anne Marie, let's hold off on the attendee.
They're already in, I think.
I didn't let him in. Did you let him in?
Mm-mm.
Oh, and yeah, they should be on the wait, like sort of like the waiting.
Yeah, there
room
should
then.
be a wait list.
I don't see move to a wait list.
There should be a. Chris, am I co-hosting?
Oh, I see. Yeah, they're in. That's okay. This one's my friend, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, Taylor's with me, so she can
Okay,
hear in on this. But yeah, it seems like she just came right in, so not sure if that's something.
Yeah, I don't see like move to. Normally there's like a waiting room. I don't see a
Yeah,
move
there
to
is.
waiting room.
There should be a waiting room on all of these. Okay, well, while you guys are playing that, let me just. I'll do that while you're. I'll do that as you're speaking.
And we're waiting just in case. We're waiting.
I saw Katie just emailed us asking about the link.
Let me get
Tell
that.
her
for
that she can log in directly off of the Comic Fest page if she wants to.
Will she be an attendee though?
She will be an attendee.
She's one of the panelists.
The panelists, like the only people we had listed as panelists were you and Barbara, because I didn't know about anybody else.
So Jay and Katie are both part of the Carver Kingdom. That's what I was saying.
Did you send her the link as well, Barbara?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I
okay.
did. So that's why I'm responding to her now.
We
Okay, great.
could
Thank
promote
you.
an attendee to panelist. It does give us that option. So if it's your friend that they come in as the attendee, it looks like we can move them to panelist side.
That's probably how they came in, because they weren't listed as a panelist.
Who will be in charge of time? It would be, Barbara, were you thinking that we would answer questions before the drawing demo or after the drawing demo?
It's fine with me. I usually do questions all at the end, but I'm fine doing questions and then demo if you feel more comfortable doing that.
It doesn't matter to me. Just if I'm in the middle of drawing, I need someone to like tell me, hey,
Oh, yeah.
now's a good time to start answering some questions.
Yeah. So maybe, how about this? How about we do questions right after we're sort of done talking, and that way it'll be like a two-parter situation where we'll have sort of the table talk and we'll have the, hey,
It must be
Katie.
Katie.
Hi.
Katie, you'll need to change your name.
Yeah.
I think that because Barbara shared her link, it's showing up as Barbara Perez.
Oh, okay. And actually, I figured out how to do that a few days ago, so that's
Perfect.
good timing. Okay, sorry. I was like, I was trying to figure out which Barbara Perez I needed to be. All right. Also, Barbara, you can ignore the email I just sent you asking if there's a link, because then
I answered it, so it's okay.
yeah.
All right.
And Anne Marie, I don't know whether Chris made me a co-host or not, so if you see anyone waiting, you may have to let them in. I don't know. He asked me, I had to shift hosting to him so that he could do the recording, and I asked him to make me a co-host. I don't know if he did.
You're a co-host. It's
Okay,
listed.
good, thank you.
So since there's no waiting room, is there still letting
I
people
think there
in
is a
then?
waiting room. These people
Okay.
all came in under Barbara's invite
Okay.
as a panelist. So I think there is a waiting room because I was pretty sure I enabled the waiting room when I did the setup, but anything's possible. Anything that could have gone wrong is very possibly wrong.
Well, it's the
Trust
first
me.
one of the day. This is where we get all the problems figured out.
Yeah.
So, Katie, it sounds like Barbara was gonna start things off and do like sort of take the lead with the presentation of the slideshow, then answer some questions, and then drawing demo, and then, happy to answer more questions if they come up.
That sounds good. I'm just drinking my coffee now, so by the time Barbara's done with her intro, it should kick in.
And then I told Penny this, but we're going to introduce ourselves. So,
Okay.
She's going to kick it off, and then we'll go around.
We'll see who we get. We don't know. We had about 8 people signed up for this, I think. So that's pretty good.
Good, yeah.
For the first time, pretty good. So cross your fingers that some of them show up.
17 people signed up.
17?
There you
Wow,
go.
nice.
I'm about to tweet it one last time before we get started, so maybe.
Thank you. Do that.
I mean, I don't know. I'm in Chicago, so like in my brain, I don't know how many people are going to be up on Saturday right now, but we'll see.
Well, they at least signed up for it, so.
Yeah, those I'm not worried about. It's more.
Oh, I am.
If anybody from my Twitter is just kind of browsing, going, "Oh, I can watch that right now." There we go. And I guess I should ask before we get started, would you prefer us to mute our mics during the majority of it, or?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're not like directly speaking, probably mute your mics just to avoid like feedback. But it sounds like everybody's pretty good so far on feedback sounds, and the slideshow, it's like 10 slides, like it's
Yeah.
very short.
All right, I'll at least do it for your intro, but yeah, I thought I'd ask just in case, for
Yeah.
politeness sake.
And just so I'm sure, this is good audio-wise.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
what I
you
like
sound
to say.
fine.
Great.
Yeah, it's great. So let's wait a few more minutes, and if we'll get started. And if nobody else, you've got us as an audience, which I'm really excited to hear about this because I think the book looks absolutely beautiful. So
We got 2 attendees. That's great.
Yeah, I think the last time we did one of these, we had maybe like 5, and it turned out perfectly good. So yeah.
And Penny,
Hmm.
if she can make it, we may have Katie from Kids World,
Okay,
because she was super excited when she found out that Chad was going to be part of the convention.
excellent.
Apparently, she's seen Chad at C2E2 a number of times, so she was going to try to make it as well.
Okay, well, very nice. We've got at least 3, so that's good.
Oh,
I'd say
cool.
give us 2 more minutes and we'll go. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
3 is pretty good for 9:30 on a Saturday
Yeah.
morning.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
It's not bad.
And it'll be recorded. That's the good thing about this. I feel like these recordings are really helping, you know.
We noticed that we had one program where we did it and we had about 5 people show up, and then Chris put the recording up and about 20 people watched the recording later. So you just don't know.
Yeah.
So
And there have been plenty of in-person panels I've done where I was like, oh man, I really wish they had recorded it, just because like it was at a weird time, or just a lot of people, or people would tell me later, oh, I wish I had gone to that. I'm like, I wish I had too.
I've had several where I've registered for webinars and haven't been able to make it, and you know, or just completely forgot or whatever, and then was able to catch it later.
Yeah.
So the recording is really useful.
My mom has tuned into some of the webinars I've done and some of the panels, but she's a very critical audience member. And there was one panel I did that was pre-recorded and then like live streamed. And apparently the presenters didn't make it clear that it was pre-recorded. So she thought it was like really rude that we didn't answer any audience questions. And that was just a really interesting observation. Like,
Yes.
if it's going to be pre-recorded, you should indicate that, because one of the whole points of having a live event is that you can ask questions.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So would you guys like to go ahead and start? Should we start?
Yeah, let's get to
We have
it.
people may be dropping in too, so that's perfectly fine. So I would like to welcome you all to the first day of our virtual Comic Fest, actually the only day of our virtual Comic Fest. We are very happy to have you here, and we have several just quick announcements. If you haven't noticed it on the page, the Comic Fest page, there is a huge artist alley. There's probably about 40 different artists there, and some of them are offering specials for this time, so you might want to go and check their sites out and see if you can pick up cool stuff. And also, if you mention the Comic Fest at Atlas Comics up on Harlem, for those of you who are in the area, he's offering a 10% discount until the 13th, and from September 5th to the 13th, and also 2 free Comic Book Day free books. So please use those coupons, go ahead and do all of that wonderful stuff. And we have the creators of Cardboard Kingdom with us, and they are going to introduce themselves and take charge of this event. If you do have any questions, if you could put them in the Q&A block at the bottom of your screen. If you mouse over the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little thing that says Q&A. Just click on that and put them in, and we'll try to get to those. And yes, we are being recorded, so if you do see this later after the event, you will not be able to ask any questions. All right, so Barbara, off you go.
All right, welcome everybody. Good morning. My name is Barbara Perez Marquez. I'm one of the co-creators of the Cardboard Kingdom, and I'm going to be moderating our little table talk today. I'm a Latinx queer writer. I wrote Amanda, the Mad Scientist from book 1 of the Cardboard Kingdom, and you can find me online at Mustache Babs, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm going to pass it along. I've got Jay on this side of my screen.
Hi everyone, my name is Jay Fullering. I draw a comic called The Boy in Pink Earmuffs. It's about 2 young queer boys growing up, sort of based on my life growing up in Rhode Island, so a lot of East Coast vibes. I'm one of the co-creators of Cardboard Kingdom as well. I wrote the Megalopolis story and some of the interactions with Jack character and his sister Sam. My pronouns are he, him, and I will shoot it over, it looks like, to Chad maybe.
Cool. Hi. So I would guess that most people watching this are familiar with what Cardboard Kingdom is, but in case you aren't, Cardboard Kingdom is a book that I coordinated and illustrated, and then Jay, Barbara, and Katie all are 3 of the 10 contributors who each submitted 1 or multiple characters and wrote their stories. Each chapter follows a different character. So just to get that out of the way. And yeah, I'm Chad. I live in Chicago. I illustrated Cardboard Kingdom and planned it out and wrote Jack the Sorceress's story in the Army of Evil chapter. And yeah, Katie, would you like to say hi?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Katie Schenkel. I am also one of the co-creators of the Cardboard Kingdom. I actually wrote the story for Sophie the Big Banshee. And besides Cardboard Kingdom, I have a few other kids' books out. Some of them include Alice, Secret Agent of Wonderland, a few different sports books, and most recently, a kids' horror comic called My Slime is Alive.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, so we've got 4 of us here today. We're going to be talking a little bit about our process and what went into creating the book this morning, and share a little bit of what goes behind the scenes to create this sort of larger than life graphic novel. So I'm going to be sharing my screen in a moment. I'm going to load that up now, and we'll get started on our little presentation for this morning. Then we're going to pass it on to sort of talking about ourselves in a table talk format, and you'll have time to ask questions, and we'll have a little draw along with Chad. So make sure you have your pencils and paper on standby for the second half of today. So I'm going to be introducing a little bit of what the Cardboard Kingdom is. It's a graphic novel about a neighborhood of kids having a summer adventure, creating fantastical costumes and using their imagination. Pretty straightforward, you know. Chad came up with this great concept of this neighborhood of kids that played together, and you know, we all sort of came together and created their characters or stories, and sort of brought to life this neighborhood where they create, you know, these cardboard personas that use their imagination to create this imaginative world around their summer adventures. As you can see, there's quite a bit of kids in this neighborhood. They're very diverse. Their thoughts are very different. They're all very different in their characters. And, you know, the big task of book 1 was really to create a seamless neighborhood where all of these things are sort of operating at the same time. All of these kids are operating in the same time. And as Chad mentioned, we built the kingdom with 1 artist, Chad himself. And then there's 10 of us creating all of these kids along with Chad, and just all of their complete environment. You know, you're talking about their families, their struggles, their emotional journeys, and also their adventures. You know, what do kids like to do in the summer? They like to play. You know, we brought them out into their neighborhood and allowed them to go wild on what they did. So the book explores a lot of that throughout their summer, and Chad's awesome art really allows for us to see as readers not just their adventures, but also their imagination and how it presents itself. You know, as you can see on the screen now, you're seeing quite a few of the cast in their imagination personas, in their Carver Kingdom people. You can see the Big Banshee in the middle, but this is very much how they draw themselves. You know, you see kids create art, and sometimes you're like, what does that look like? And to them, you know, to represent in the book that they see themselves in different ways, art has really allowed us to do that as a graphic novel. Like I said, pretty short presentation, but we do have some great resources. If you visit thecarverkingdom.com, you'll find resources and activities to make your own kid, make your own character, coloring pages. There's paper crafts, and there is also an extra story after you finish reading The Carver Kingdom, and you'll find all the information. It's sort of like our hub for everything The Carver Kingdom related. So, and we have book 2 coming up, which we'll be talking a little bit about today. And it's called The Roar of the Beast. Comes out 2021. I just lost my headphones. But, you know, we'll follow our kids in the fall. So again, you know, when you think about telling stories and continuity, we're sort of following the kids along the calendar year. So look out for that. And we're gonna kick it off back to us. Any general thoughts anybody wants to add to that? Jay, Chad, Katie, anything I missed that you thought would be like super important to know as a general sort of like baseboard for our conversation today?
Well, like you said, each chapter tells a story of a different character, one of the kids in that same neighborhood. Everyone lives near each other. They're all neighbors. They all play together. So as you meet different characters in each chapter, you see them all show up in each other's stories and overlap in their adventures. And that's like a really cool, that was a really cool aspect of making the book. And it was a really cool thing to see all of you bouncing ideas off of each other and all of you interpreting characters differently and checking in with each other about your representation of your character. Were there any interesting results of seeing your character show up in other people's stories, or any fun collaborative aspects and surprises from that process?
Anybody want to take that? Jay or Katie?
I know for Megalopolis, I had kind of written sort of an antagonistic character who later becomes the bully and gets fleshed out. And so it was neat to see. So for Megalopolis and for the original, the first chapter, many, many years ago, Chad and I met up. I was living in Chicago at the time, and we decided we wanted to work on a short comic together. And that eventually became, we called The Sorceress Next Door, which became the first chapter of the Cardboard Kingdom. And that was, we had decided to tell that story without any text. And so I kind of wanted to do the same thing for the follow-up for the Megalopolis short story. So I kind of got to sort of visually help describe this bully character that then I got to kind of find its own larger character in the following story.
Yeah, also fun fact, Jay and I have both lived extremely close to each other, but at very different points. We're both from central Indiana, like it's the same county, I think. And then he went to Chicago, then he left Chicago, then I moved to Chicago. So Jay and I have never been actually in the same state, I think, at the same time.
One of these days.
One of these days, yeah. Anyway, sorry, short little tidbit there. No, and I think that there's some really interesting elements to, again, how Chad described the book, that we were all very gentle and respectful of each other's characters. I think when I first described to people what the book was, well before it, like, even well before it actually officially got published, people were like, oh, so like an anthology. I'm like, well, yeah, but also they're on their, like, it's such a bigger story than just a set of stories about like different kids' stories, and they're all separate. And I think for Sophie's story especially, it's actually a pretty intense origin story of her Big Banshee character. She goes through a lot of questioning if her personality is what it's supposed to be, if she's too loud, if she's not as proper a person as one of her relatives wants her to be. And at the end of her little chapter, she ends up kind of embracing herself better. And one of the things that really brought me joy is getting to see, and she is the third chapter in the book, so really early on. And it's really a joy for me to get to see her in other people's stories, being that loud, very opinionated, very like big personality character, and having not only other kids be okay with that, but really embracing her. Getting to see her build friendships throughout the book after she figures out the kind of person she wants to be, just felt really, it made me feel warm inside every time I got to read the rest of the chapters in the book. So that's been a really unique element to this, is just getting to see how other people build the friendships between the characters that they hold dear to themselves, because they were the ones that co-created them. So I think that that's been an extremely unique element to being part of this book.
Yeah, if I could just say, like, as Jay mentioned, kind of the prototype chapter of the Cardboard Kingdom was actually created back in 2013 when Jay and I wrote the story that would be the first chapter in Cardboard Kingdom, all about Jack the Sorceress and his younger sister, Sam the Goblin. And as Jay mentioned, it's a wordless chapter. I think Jay and I both kind of enjoy wordless comics. It's an interesting challenge as a storyteller and as an artist to tell a comic story without any words. So we had created these characters, but we had never heard them speak. But then those characters show up in everyone else's chapters, most of which those chapters have words. And so it was really neat for me as the co-creator of The Sorceress to see all of you giving Jack a voice. And it really helped inform my understanding and appreciation of that character. And so later on in the book, Jack has another chapter that I wrote by myself. And all of your interpretations of Jack really helped inform where Jack's story would go and what his voice is like. So that was just a particularly exciting and constructive aspect of the collaboration for me.
Yeah, and I also, something else that's been kind of fun is that so the bully character, Roy the Bully, actually shows up first in my story, and when I wrote him, it was very much I need a bully archetype for plot reasons. And so I was fairly, not basic, but like I kept it to, he says some mean things, he takes one of the kids, I think it was it was originally a backpack, but then it ended up being his costume. And yeah, so like, and that was it. And then like he gets defeated and he runs away. And it was really fun to see, I'm trying to remember who wrote the bully chapter.
David DeMeo.
David, yep. So it was really fun to see both him and also Jay with Megalopolis, because like the bully also shows up in that. It was really fun to see how people took that basic character that I just, again, it was largely like, oh, okay, and this will be the bully. And really flesh him out and give him some more things to do. And yeah, the other thing I really find interesting about the Megalopolis story is that the little boy who is who Jay wrote as the protagonist of that actually shows up not in other people's chapters, but in these little in-between pages where he'll be building his the building block, or I think it starts off with building blocks, but then it also has different cardboard. But he's just trying to build this little city, and all the other characters keep keep accidentally messing things up for him, and until he finally builds his magnum opus of this giant city made of cardboard. And so before you even really see him in any of the stories, we get to see just little snippets of his journey, and then eventually we get to see him really grow and thrive. And I think that was something that we figured out in the middle of making the book. This wasn't something that we had originally like conceived of. And I thought that and a few other kind of little interval things, it was very interesting how we kind of decided we don't have to just do chapters, we can do little things that will connect everyone together. And I think for Megalopolis especially, it's really cool to see how, and I think this was the same thing with the robot character too, where they show up before they really have their story begin. And it made it feel like a really cohesive way to do that. So it wasn't just, oh, we're going to show everybody's origin stories in order. It made it feel like it's a real neighborhood where people figure themselves, or the kids figure themselves out in different ways at different points of the summer. So I don't know. I always found that a really interesting way to do some of the aspects of the book.
Yeah.
I think a lot of credit has to go to Chad for that. One of his many talents, the ability to kind of take what were semi-desperate stories that we had submitted and find the commonalities and find ways to stitch them together into this cohesive whole. And there was, a back and forth with that, but in many ways, Chad was kind of the overseer who kind of could see the whole picture. And
Well, thanks. What was neat about the process was that I kind of, from the submissions process online, when all of you were sending in your character ideas and your story ideas, I picked, the core 10 chapters that sort of, I think, are the first 10 chapters in the book. And I think most of you worked on those chapters largely on your own in calls and emails with me. And we would share our drafts with each other, but there wasn't a ton of bouncing back and forth. But then once those core chapters were done, then I opened the floor to you guys and I asked, do any of you have ideas for some of these characters that show up but haven't had their own story, like the bully and like the robot? And how might we tie together everything as cohesively as we can so it really feels like one neighborhood? And so that's when the interludes in between each chapter appeared, that Katie talked about, that we came up with. How can we bring in different characters, even if they don't appear in a chapter? Maybe they show up in an interlude. And so people pitched stories, secondary stories or second stories. And that's when we wrote the robot story and the bully story and the Army of Evil story. And I knew that I wanted to have a giant culminating epic conclusion for the book, Summer's End. But I wasn't sure what that would be at the start of the process. And so as we developed all the core stories, and then as we developed some of the other stories, it became clear to me there's an alliance of the villains of the kingdom. And even though they're not actually evil, they're just more pranksters. This idea came to mind of what kind of last epic adventure they might have for the summer. And that's what you see in the conclusion. So it was a really neat process of building on what we had already established. And actually, once we sold the book to Knopf, our editors, a lot of their feedback was on tying it all together. So I think it was their suggestion to have a neighborhood map at the beginning and at the end of the book to kind of literally tie it all together, to show who lives where. And that was tricky to do, but it's been useful to have. Barbara, do you want to talk about your experience writing The Mad Scientist? Because I think that's a really layered, wonderful story too.
Thank you. Yeah, so absolutely. So, we've heard a little bit about how we were working in, silos, but not quite right under Chad's oversight. And we created sort of this universe. It's really what the Cardboard Kingdom is. We've created this universe amongst these kids in this neighborhood. And, when I pitched my idea as a creator of color, as a queer creator that sort of didn't grow up in America, I was really interested in exploring that. So you'll find amongst all of the diverse kids in our neighborhood, you'll find Amanda, who is the daughter of an immigrant family. And, you know, I really just wanted to speak to cultural differences and how those things translate to a kid, right? Like Amanda, who speaks Spanish and speaks English, and is sort of interacting with all these kids that come from different cultures or that have a different play culture than her own, and how that speaks to her experience at home and at play. So that's really where a lot of her story sort of develops, and it's been really great to see her grow. I think a lot of us can probably agree that our characters seem to be growing along the book, because they learn from each other, because they experience these things together. And with her, you know, with Amanda, has been the ability to sort of explore beyond what she's learning at home. She's a very STEM-oriented kid, so she's really interested in science as the mad scientist. She's interested in experimenting, and sort of exploring that has been really fun to, you know, counter the more creative kids that are like crafters and they're, you know, more interested in architecture. And that's really been like a real joy to, you know, not just as a creator, but really to see the kids develop and to see the stories grow from there. And I think that, you know, as our audience is hearing today, it's really interesting to people to hear that, you know, that we didn't really know each other. You know, some of us have never been in the same room together. You know, we speak through chat and with each other online. So in these new Zoom webinar online times, it's really interesting to see that we sort of maybe had a leg up in some ways to sort of learn that process. And, you know, it really speaks to the nature of work, of group work, of play together, that we sort of want to transmit through Cardboard Kingdom, that we really did it first. You know, we tried it, we played with each other, we played with Chad's initial ideas, and went from there. And now we're, you know, looking ahead at book 2 that comes out next summer. And I think that, you know, to maybe switch gears towards that as we sort of near the last bit of our table talk, maybe we'll go around and share a little bit about what to expect for the book. Like I mentioned in the presentation, the books sort of follow the kids throughout the calendar year right now. So it's going to be taking part in the fall. And, you know, for Amanda specifically, I'm really excited to see her maybe grow a little bit on her own. You know, in book 1, you'll see that she's still maybe at odds with what she's learning at home and what she's seeing while she's at play with her friends. But I think that in book 2, she really finds a way to find her common ground and what that means for her as a kid in the neighborhood. So if anybody wants to come around and maybe share a little bit about what to expect for Roar of the Beast, either for your character or for the book itself.
I'll say, so I believe right now the next Cardboard Kingdom book will be out next June, so that's less than a year, which is super exciting. And the little tidbit I can share about Roar of the Beast is that Jack the Sorceress will get a magical makeover.
My husband helped set something up. I don't know if it's probably pretty small, but there's a little bit of a clue behind me as to what season and holiday we will be featuring on. You see the cobwebs back there. But, you know, the Cardboard Kingdom is a world of creativity and making costumes. And for the next book, you're really going to see that get expanded. I'm really excited for people to read it.
So I don't know, Chad can just kind of go like, if I give away too much. I have been itching now, especially now that we're like less than a year away, I've been itching to actually talk about some of the themes of the next book, but I'm waiting because, yeah. But since you asked, one of the things I really like about the second book is that, you know, we have this big group of kids from the first book, and just like sheer size of it, we couldn't have them all interacting at the same time. We couldn't have, there were a lot of kids that, you know, they were on like the same page as Sophie, but they didn't really talk or anything. So I know for me especially, it was really cool to be able to explore new relationships within the kids that we've already been introduced to. And it's definitely not just Sophie. There are actually a lot of kids where I'm like, it's so cool that blank and blank you get to see their relationships. Or, you know, there's actually Jack's little sister actually gets a really nice little storyline that I think fleshes out her character quite a bit. For my part, I not only do I get to have Sophie make new friends, I think I can at least say vaguely that not only is her friendship with Huntress, which was established in book 1, stronger, but she also ends up becoming closer friends with the Knight, who is a very different character from her. And it was really fun to see that relationship flourish, especially because the Knight and the Sorceress were really the two, like those were the two people that had in some ways like the really closest friendship, but we didn't really get to see the Knight interact with anybody else. So I felt like it was a big responsibility and really an honor to get to write her expanding her friendship and getting closer to other ones. And especially too, it's really cool when you get to see young girls actually have friendships with more than one other girl, because a lot of times they just aren't written that way, or like the idea that girls can be can have a larger friend group. The other big thing that I'm going to be very vague about is that there's a specific genre that I was able to play with. Actually, when Chad had mentioned, oh, what if we did this? My eyes just lit up because I was like, yes, let's do that. So there's a very specific genre that Sophie gets inspired by.
I feel like you can say what it is.
All right. Again, I'm being conservative about this just because, you know, superheroes. I got to write Sophie decides with the big plot that's happening in the kingdom that they need a little superhero team. So Chad was like, what if like you did a Birds of Prey sort of thing? And I went, oh, my dream book? Okay, yeah, let's do that. So we got to have a really fun time with Sophie taking a special reference from like the superhero stories that she likes, and she creates a little trio of superheroes with Huntress and the Knight. So yeah, that was really, really fun to do.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Right now, if a reminder that you can use the Q&A bit, if you sort of like hover over at the end of your screen, you can start sending in your questions while we have our draw along. So Chad, take it away with your screen and set that up. We're gonna move on to our draw along for today. And then as we receive your questions, we'll have a little answering question bit at the very end. But Chad, you've got about maybe 10 minutes, and then maybe we have 5 minutes if the organizers can chime in and say if that's okay on their time.
Great. So sometimes when I do Zoom events with like with kids in a school or classroom, I'll do a draw along where I'll show you step by step how to draw specific characters. I don't know of you attendees, how many of you are adult comic readers and how many of you are kids, or whether there might be mixed groups. So I don't know whether you will actually be drawing along or not, but I was just gonna talk about drawing some of the Cardboard Kingdom characters and my process. And if any of you co-creators want to chime in about like the character designs or anything that comes to mind, just let me know. When I draw, I often will draw very lightly at first, and I'll just kind of work out the main shapes in a character just to get all of that right. And then I'll go in darker with darker, thinner lines for the details. And with Cardboard Kingdom, I tried to keep the character designs pretty simple because I knew that there would often be big groups of people. And I knew that the kids all would have somewhat complicated costumes. And so I felt like keeping things fairly simple and kind of would give it kind of a classic feel. So in a lot of cases in Cardboard Kingdom, the characters have dot eyes, and then often just like a line for the smile. And I often don't get everything right the first time. You can see me like redrawing Sophie's smile here because I didn't get it quite right. That's what I like about drawing kind of lightly at first, because you're not committing to any one line. You're trying a few lines and sticking with the one that works best. So if you were drawing on paper with a pencil, you would just use very light pressure at first, and then press harder when you're more confident in where you're drawing. And you might notice, as I mentioned, that I draw with like the basic shapes first. But with Cardboard Kingdom, of course, most of the kids are wearing cardboard outfits, often helmets or masks and headpieces. So I'll often draw lightly the kid first and then the costume that they're wearing. And so that's why everything will look kind of like transparent here, because that is what I'm doing. And so this is, as you can tell if you're familiar with the book, this is Sophie the Big Banshee. And she is this, her character is this big, boisterous character. I don't know, Katie, do we consider her like an orc or a troll, or it just her own made-up creature?
I think own made-up creature. I know a lot of times people saw the design and they're like, oh, she's doing Hulk. I'm like, well, not entirely. She has her own IP. It's fine.
Right. She's strong and she's muscular and green. So
yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, you know, banshees are not actually that troll-like. They're kind of like, if you Google them, they tend to be more like sea creature-y looking things, like really gaunt and everything. But her inspiration for her name is because a relative of hers says, oh, you know, you're yelling and you're shouting like a banshee, and she just kind of takes that or ends up running with it. So I feel like the design ends up being, you know, kind of trollish, kind of monstery, but also kind of its own thing. And I'll just say, too, that one of the cool things about this was when Chad originally kind of pitched online the idea of the Cardboard Kingdom, one of the, like, just kind of sample ideas he had was a kid that was essentially Sophie. And it happened to be the one kid where, while I was pitching, I was like, oh, I really like that design. So when Chad said, oh, maybe your idea could be this kid that I've already drawn, it just kind of felt like fate. So, and obviously, like, Sophie's design ended up changing a lot, but it was really cool how Chad and I were on the same page in terms of what we wanted the character to look like.
Yeah, I really loved how open and thoughtful all of you were. You know, as I would suggest, you know, like Katie said, I had this character design that I just loved and that I had been using, or looking for an opportunity to use. And so when she sent in her original idea for a boisterous kind of superhero character, I just thought, oh, wow, what if this character could work well? And I was so glad that Katie liked that character. If you are familiar with the Big Banshee character, one of her trademark aspects is her fists have these it's essentially a cube. So these are over her hands. And then I draw, oops. Well, I might have, okay, that's close enough. So it looks like a big fist. And originally, in my original conception of the character, her hands were really big and they were open, like these big, cool open hands. And Katie pointed out, you know, I could imagine her getting stuck in doorways. Those are so big, they're not very useful. And I think if they were closed fists, that would actually be a lot more dynamic and useful in like battle and stuff like that. And I thought that was a really great suggestion. And I couldn't imagine drawing her any other way now.
Yeah, and the other thing that I keep, I think, pitching a couple of times, that having like a short interlude where the mad scientist who Chad is drawing right now, tries to help Sophie by giving her much bigger, like, open hands, and then having, like, Sophie fall over because they're so heavy, or she can't get through the mad scientist's laboratory door. Whether or not that ever makes it into any of the books, just consider that, like, background. That, like, that has happened in my brain. That they're like, yes, I'm gonna be even more powerful. Oh, I can't use these. They're just too big.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and I'll give you a little bit as chat sort of goes on to our third character for the draw along as we near our last 5 minutes. For the mad scientist, as you can tell, her costume is very simple. So as I mentioned, you know, I was really interested in this kit that's maybe not all cardboard all the time, but it's still sort of playing along and finding ways in which to use cardboard in maybe ways that they don't necessarily attach to themselves. So Amanda's costume is really just her mustache that's made out of cardboard. Everything else is things that she found around her house. And that was really interesting and important for us to make sure that that sort of all of this imaginative play was accessible. So there is something to be said about accessibility of things to play with that is really important for us throughout Cardboard Kingdom. And I'll post our question before I pass it on to Jay. We have one question on the Q&A saying, what were the challenges of working remotely with people you hadn't met before? Did you ever get to meet up with your fellow creators at any point? And Jay, I'll pass it on to you as Chad sort of moved on to our third character.
For me, I guess it's not too difficult. I think maybe for Chad, just the scheduling aspect, especially when we were kind of working in teams, it's very difficult to get everybody, like, we're all different parts of the world, of the States, we're, you know, different time zones. So it's very hard to sort of get the logistics down, I think, for that sort of stuff. But really, so we ended up using Google and Facebook for a lot of our interactions online. And that was really great because we could kind of put up progress and sort of comment at our leisure. So there was, when we were doing like live interactions with each other, that was always kind of difficult to get arranged, and kind of like a Zoom meeting, you got to get, you know, audio problems and all that sort of stuff all ironed out. But working digitally through Google and email threads, and on we have a Facebook creators Cardboard Kingdom creator page that only we have access to. That was a really interesting way to sort of work together digitally. And we did get a chance, a lot of us, to meet up. It was here in New York, I believe, for, was it
FlameCon, I think, yeah, a couple of years back.
Yeah, and I think then the next year, because I wasn't able to make that one, so I had a very FOMO, fear of missing out moment with that. Then the next year, I was able to make it, and another like variety of our creators got to do that. Also, and like Molly Muldoon usually makes it to C2E2, so like Chad and I, who are both Chicago-based, tend to see her. And I should point out, Chad and I live in the same city, and even before the pandemic, we only got to see each other a couple times a year because it's just like, you know, you live in the same city, but you never see each other. But the other funny thing is that, like, I've only met, I think it was Cloud. I think Cloud was, who was in San Diego, but, like, I only got to meet him in person the night of the Eisner, where we were nominated for like, one of the most, like, prestigious awards in comics. So I was like, hey, buddy, I get to talk to you in person for the first time. Now let's go to the banquet and eat some catering before the awards. So yeah, and I think Barbara and I have only met like twice in person, but we've done a lot more, I think, online, like just chatting with each other through Facebook or through chat rooms and stuff. And I will say what I've said for the last like 5 years since we really started the project, well before we got bought, or well before the book got bought. This project has been a small miracle, and the fact that we've been able to do it twice is an even like slightly larger miracle. And I occasionally just go like, wow, I can't believe that this is my life and that this worked and that we all were able to create something that is not just like a book that's out in the world, but a book that means a lot to a lot of people. So I don't think any of us take that for granted.
Beautifully said.
Yeah, and I think we've reached the end of our panel. So before I pass it back on to Penny, I've been Barbara Perez Marquez. You can find me online at Mustache Babs, and we'll go around and say our names to remind everybody who we've been and where they can find us.
Hi, I'm Jay Fullering. You can find me on Twitter at jfullering, and my comics at boyinpinkearmuffs.com.
I'm Katie Schenkel. You can really find my stuff at katieschenkel.com. And like I said, my most recent book has been a Goosebumps-esque kids comic called My Slime is Alive. So feel free to Google that and check it out.
And I'm Chad Sell. The best way to find stuff about me is chadsellcomics.com. And there we have Cardboard Kingdom coloring book pages. We have free paper craft designs to create a bunch of the costumes from the Cardboard Kingdom. And as Barbara mentioned, we have an exclusive online comic featuring the robot and the army of evil that you can read in its entirety online too. Thanks, Barbara, for moderating and organizing this, and thanks, Eisenhower Public Library.
Thank you all very, very much for coming. This was fascinating. I really enjoyed this. I have not yet seen the book, so now I really have to go seek it out. And thank you very, very much. I hope the rest of you come to something else in the Comic Fest today, and we appreciate you being here. I am going to block you all out now. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.